Hey y'all, it is Sally and I am the Half Grass Gardener. I garden here in Central Texas in Zone 8B and it's fall, which means it is planting season. I'm working on a brand new bed, and before I start planting, I like to put together a garden plan. So I thought I would share that process with you. Now, I don't make a strict design. It's more like a flexible guide that helps me visualize the layout, make sure I'm buying the right number and mix of plants, and it helps me build a garden that looks cohesive instead of just kind of thrown together. I am going for a cottage style look, so there's definitely going to be a little bit of flow as things kind of get put in. And of course, naturally, your garden is always changing, but this is a good place to start. Having a plan keeps me focused, helps me avoid coming home with a car full of random pretty plants that all the nurseries have out right now. So it inevitably ends up saving me some money, and just makes my space look a little bit more cohesive. In this video, I'm going to show you how I plan my layout, thinking through design, shape, structure, color, but in a super easy, accessible way. So hopefully this will give you a little bit of confidence, some good tips, and you can get out and start creating your own garden. So this is the bed I'm going to be working with. I prepped this a couple of weeks ago. I've actually got a video where I showed you how I did the layout, and I used the sheet mulching method with cardboard and mulch. And when I'm ready to plant here in about another week, it should be pretty good. It's definitely not going to be fully decomposed, but it'll be good enough for what we're trying to get done right now. Step one in the process is research. So before you ever put pencil to paper, it's important to do research on what actually works in your space. Get to know your soil type, where your sun comes in, if you're full sun or part sun or shade. Are you dry, or is your soil a little bit moister? What is it that you're actually working with? And then once you know your conditions, you can make a list of the plants that you absolutely love and that will thrive where you live and in this particular bed. There's tons of resources out there. You can use the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center has a great searchable database. Obviously, there's tons of books. Facebook groups are a great place to get information, but really you just want to have an idea of what you even like and also what the goals are for your garden space. So in my case, my focus is on attracting hummingbirds and butterflies. The space that I'm working with is right off of my patio, so I don't necessarily want to attract bees, although I wouldn't be too upset about it. But I do really want to focus especially on the hummingbirds, because I'm going to be able to see this garden from my breakfast table and while we're sitting out on our garden, on our patio space. So that's my focus. I'm going to put a link below in the description for a really great resource. It's a book that was recently written by the former director of horticulture for the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. It's a great resource if you are interested in learning about plants that are native to Texas. The design itself, I actually just do on graph paper. You could use a regular sheet of paper. It really doesn't matter. You just want something that you know is going to have the right scale. So when you're drawing in your plants, you know you're not putting something where it's not going to fit. In this case, I just use 1 square is equal to 1 square foot. So my bed is about 22 feet wide and about 11 feet deep. Here's the general shape. And this isn't a formal garden. I'm not trying to make everything line up like soldiers. I just want a general look and feel that's going to match what's in my garden. So if I'm off by a foot or a few inches, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So this is the general layout of the garden. I will have stepping stones here. Right now I have them just dry fit, so I don't know exactly where they're going to go, but I'll just go ahead and add a little trail right here to kind of remind myself that there's going to be my little foot square stepping stones here. Right now I've got a rock rose here that I plan to remove but I do want to have a larger shrub here, something that's maybe 5 or 6 feet tall. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this in just as a circle. And then on this side, I'd like to include a Yaupon holly, something that I can keep sort of low and a little bit like a topiary. You see them a lot in English garden design, and I think it's kind of funny they call them beach balls. I'm gonna go ahead and put a YP. They use boxwoods traditionally, but the Yaupon holly is native to Texas and other parts of the South. It's very drought tolerant, and it does take well to pruning, so I think it's gonna be a good option for me. When I start my plan, the thing that I'm always keeping in mind is the plant form. It's also called the habit. And that just means the overall shape or structure of the plant. And there's 3 basic types of plant habits: vertical or upright. And those are things that are like spiky stems. So think of like liatris or echinacea. Your mounded forms, and that's going to be things like lantana or your salvias, Zexminia, anything that's got kind of that spherical natural shape to it. And then you've got your horizontal and spreading, and those are obviously going to be things like your ground cover, maybe if you're using like a vining lantana. There's a lot of different options out there, but think of the kind of the low forms. A balanced garden usually includes all 3 forms, and juxtaposing plants with opposite forms, like pairing a spiky upright plant with a mounded one, is going to create some contrast and more interest and keep your garden more visually interesting. And now what I want to do is just go in and draw in some of the shapes of the types of plants that I want in certain areas. So I'm not picking plants immediately. I just want kind of a general layout. So here I'm going to put circles because I know I want some mounded plants here. And then I want something a little bit taller here. So I'm going to put these little spikes. And here I'm going to put a grass in. So this is going to be my grass symbol. Then we're going to do some more spiky plants here, some more mounding plants here, and then maybe we're going to do a ground cover here. So ground cover, we'll just make this little squiggly lines. And as I'm drawing these, this doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to put one big plant right here. This could be 2 or 3 different plants, or it could be one big one. We're not really sure right now. The whole point is just to juxtapose the different shapes of the plant forms, and then we'll come back later and we'll slot in exactly what we're going to put here. So this is on one side of my path, and then on the other side of the path, I don't necessarily want to copy this exactly, but I do want to have some similar weight. So I am going to go ahead and fill this in. Like another grass right here, maybe 2. And you can see there's just really and you can see what I'm really just trying to do is combine the different plant forms and to make sure that I'm putting enough difference in the plant forms while still keeping the weight of the overall design very similar. And this is going to be some grass here. I think some more spiky plants will look nice here. We're going to fill in with a little more ground cover here. This doesn't necessarily mean this is all the same thing. Again, this is just my form that I'm putting in to show the different sizes and shapes of things. And by size, I mean, this is more kind of the ground cover. These are the circles, these are the spikies, and these are my grass. This area next here to my patio, I'm actually going to keep open because I might put potted plants right here. I'm going to go ahead and keep that open. So you can see I've got a pretty general layout right here. I do want to add on this section, I've got my shrub, and I do want to put a vine here. And I plan to build a little trellis or like an obelisk to put here. And the reason why I want to do that is, so here's the house. My house is stone, so I've got those really kind of sharp, heavy corners, and I want to have the shrub sort of soften that corner a little bit. And then to balance out the height and weight of that shrub, I think the vine on a trellis would be really pretty. And as I'm looking out my patio, I'll be able to see that beautiful vine, and I think that would just be a really nice addition right here. I don't want to put anything tall on this side. If you remember from the picture, this side's more open to the rest of the garden. So I want to keep this side pretty low, but I think it's okay to block some of the view on this side. So once I've got the general layout sketched with my mounded, spiky, and open shapes in place, that's when I go back to my plant list. I'll look at what fits based on size, color, and texture. Size is going to help me layer correctly. I'm also looking at the texture of the plants. Leaf shape, whether the plant is really dense and full or if it's airy. It keeps your eye moving through the space. So you don't necessarily want a bunch of blobs of things that are the same color green. You might want to choose something that's a darker green next to something that's a more chartreuse or one of our sort of gray green like sage colors. You also need to think about the balance and layout of your design. You can have a natural and informal garden or like a cottage style garden that still feels balanced. Since my bed's a half circle, I'm using 2 larger plants to anchor it on either side. I'm going to layer the rest of the plants with taller plants in the back corners and everything else sort of stepping down toward the edge. The gradual tiering is going to make it feel cohesive, and it's going to keep your eye moving through this space. It is also going to make sure that my view isn't blocked when I'm looking at this from my patio or inside my house. I'm not going to tell you all the rest of the plants I'm putting in. I want to keep that a surprise for when we do our layout and planting on my next video. All right, guys, I hope that was really helpful for you. Stay tuned for part 3 of this series. In about a week, I will be placing my plants and getting them in the ground, so you'll get to see everything that I chose and what the final design looks like. I'll see you next time. Oh, by the way, if you're still here, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and share this with a gardening friend. Thanks.